It was evident that the community kind of really got together for the first time in years, which was really like inspiring to see actually, like my dad's farmer friend would distribute flour for free and milk, and chefs in Kherson are baking bread and giving it out to, older people. And it's been inspiring to witness all of that. And then after the first few weeks, they started kidnapping people. Journalists, activists, mayors, anyone who's outspoken. Then they started in Kherson shooting at the crowds, and the same things are happening all over the region. So that's when I started really insisting on my parents leaving.
I'm Alex Kruger, the International Managing Editor of the New Statesman. Since the 24th of February, Ukraine has undergone a cataclysm. We've seen the geopolitics on the screen, but this has also affected tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Ukrainians in their everyday lives, both within the country and increasingly outside it. Since the 24th of February, 4 million Ukrainians have left the country. That's in addition to 6.5 million who've been displaced inside it. I'm speaking now to Olia Hercules, a Ukrainian-born cookery writer who has found herself becoming an advocate and activist for Ukraine. Olia, how much have you slept since the 24th of February?
Not very much at all, unfortunately. But it's getting better. I think there comes a point where you realize that if you don't take care of yourself, then you're just not going to be any good for anyone. So I've been trying to do a little bit of self-care recently.
What's been the impact on you and your family?
It's the most devastating impact that there can be, I think. I don't know if we'll ever be able to go back home.
So tell me about your parents. They were in Ukraine, now they're not. Tell me about where they were and how they got to where they are now.
We come from a small town in the Kherson region, which has been occupied by the Russians from day one. And at first, it was okay. They were able to go and protest. In fact, they went pretty much every day. It was evident that the community kind of really got together for the first time in years, which was really like inspiring to see actually, like my dad's farmer friend would distribute flour for free and milk, and chefs in Kherson are baking bread and giving it out to, older people. And it's been inspiring to witness all of that. And then after the first few weeks, they started kidnapping people, journalists, activists, mayors, anyone who's outspoken. Then they started in Kherson shooting at the crowds, and the same things are happening all over the region. So that's when I started really insisting on my parents leaving. I kind of offered them to stay, as far back as the beginning of January, because they were actually here. They actually have visiting visas anyway for 3 years, and they were here for 3 weeks. And I said, "Why don't you just stay? Don't go." And they said, "No. Why should we be afraid?" That was the mood, I think. So after all of the kidnappings, and actually my parents got threats. They got threatened on the phone. They got some phone calls, and they actually kept it from me for a week. And then eventually I found out, and I phoned them, and I had a hysterical, I don't know what you call it, a panic attack or whatever it was. But I said that they absolutely must leave, because if anything happens to them, then I just won't be able to carry on. And I don't know how my children will be able to carry on, or any of our family. And my dad's argument, he's very stubborn, and he's also an amazing man. So he has a factory where he produces farming equipment, and he's got 25 people that he pays wages to. And my mom has a little B&B business, and she has 3 employees as well. And his argument was, how can I leave them all? I can't leave them. Sorry, wow, didn't expect, this is really emotional. So then after my hysterical kind of outburst, I also said, if you leave, I'm going to do my best to help your workers. So that's my next mission. So they decided to leave. At first, they were actually thinking of going through Crimea, which I said, no, absolutely no way, don't do it. They take away passports and turn you into a refugee, and then you can't leave Russia at all. But they just thought, maybe they can avoid all of the checkpoints, which are numerous, going through Kherson way. Finally, I convinced them not to do that, thankfully, and they decided to go via Kherson. To get to Kherson, it's about 70 kilometers, so it takes just under an hour normally. And that took close to 6 hours, I think, because there were about 19 checkpoints just to get to Kherson, Russian or the occupiers' checkpoints. And the experience was, my mom said that she wasn't scared, but she just said that the feeling of humiliation was beyond anything that she ever experienced before. And they've lived through Soviet Union, and there's been enough humiliations throughout their youth, but that was something different. It's just coming to each checkpoint and a gunned man questioning you, like people that don't know the area, don't know the people, don't know the language, strangers that come in with guns and question you. That was just beyond, but she's really proud and very strong, my mom, but I instructed her, was like, this is to be the best performance of your life. You have to be forget about it, forget about your pride, you just need to be polite and just answer the questions and just get through it. And she did, and she said that there were 3 types of soldiers there. One type from the edges of depravity that you can imagine, like those people come from a criminal world or a very deprived world. The older men, probably from the republics, the Eastern republics, they suspected. And then there were really mere children, 18-year-old boys, don't even shave yet, that kind of thing, which was also to her, I think, extremely hard to take in. And then there was one man that she found the most difficult, who was probably a Russian FSB officer, because he took her passport and he looked at her name in the passport and he looked at her straight in the eyes and he said, "What's your name?" After he read her name in the passport. So she tells him her name. He asks her, "What do you do?" All of these questions. And then at the end, and that's when my mom was just like, okay, breathe inside. And he's just like, "Why are you leaving?" My friends also took the journey a couple of days before, and a couple of soldiers said, "Why are you going towards the Nazis? They're shooting there, nobody's shooting here." It's so twisted.
They really believe the narrative of denazification then?
I don't know if the FSB officer did. I think he was a bit more clued in. I don't know if the others are just completely, it's black and white, it's just completely switched. It was such a shock to my mom, and my mom just said, "I'm worried about the shootings, You could hear artillery, like literally there, you know what I mean? Like, why are you leaving? Let me think about this." So they finally made it to the bridge near Kherson, and they stood in the queue for another 6 hours, and then the Russians turned them around. If there were genuine fighting ahead, the Russians did turn the cars around. They didn't let them go through. That's for now. This is the situation for now. I think, from what I understand, Kherson region is their exemplary behavior. They're trying to be the little green men there, like in Crimea, because they're hoping to take it in that kind of friendly way. Even though there are kidnappings and they're literally shooting at people protesting and phoning people and saying, if you go protest, we're gonna do this, this and this. So it's repressions, it's quiet repressions for now. But I'm just worried about what will happen if, it's just not even worth thinking about. So they were turned around and they stayed in Kherson overnight. They got shelter from friends of friends. And then the next morning they managed to break through the same route. And they ended up in this other little town. I'd rather not say the route or whatever. And they just said what a difference it was as soon as they got to the Ukrainian checkpoint. It was just everybody was kissing each other's hands and hugging, and and it was just volunteers were there helping them to find a place to rest, and tea was given, and it was just such a nice, when my mom just could breathe again. And then they just drove. My dad, who has suspected Parkinson's as well, I think, they're 64, like they're pretty strong, but my dad is getting on a little bit, but he heroically drove for 5 days straight. And one of the most heartbreaking things that my mom told me when she said about packing everything in their house was in the first day of war, in order to distract herself from her bad kind of thoughts, she was tidying up her house, and she looked at it and she was like, oh, it's so nice and tidy. And then she said, and then I imagined some Russian woman coming in and just marveling at how tidy my house is. And then the second thing that she said when they were leaving that she's, they took the essentials, and then she took all of our family pictures down and all of her embroideries down, and some of the smaller ones she actually took with her just in case, and then the others she hidden in a safe place, and it's just something that, I don't know, that just feels really extra heartbreaking.
And where are they now?
Are they in Europe? They're staying at I have family living in Germany, so they're gonna stay with them for a while, and my dad is hoping that it will be over in a couple of months. My mom is hoping that they'll be able to return by autumn, and we just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Well, both of them are extremely strong, and I think they're both. My dad is kind of quietly maybe traumatized, and my mom is crying, which is a good thing. I keep telling her, keep crying if you want to cry, because we need to let all of these feelings out.
You've just seen them, you've just come back.
Yeah, I've just come back. I decided to fly in and actually make some food, because I didn't want them to come into an empty house and fiddle around with these keys, and my dad had been driving for 5 days, so I flew in ahead of time. I went to the shop, I bought the stuff, I made a huge vat of borscht and a bolognese, bizarrely. I was just like, I don't know what to make. And this spring salad that we always make in spring, which is just tomatoes, cucumbers, loads of dill, radishes, and dressed with some yogurt, and it's really nice. So I met them.
And what was that like, that reunion?
Oh, it was incredible. It was a bit, how it is. They come in, there's this really weird situation where you have to park and get into the garage, so it was a bit like, And then finally, when they got out of the car, we just hugged. I hugged them very tightly. And because honestly, I didn't know when they were refusing to leave, after Bucha, I just didn't know what was going to happen. Sorry.
That must have been terrifying, especially after Bucha.
Yeah, it was beyond. It was beyond. I didn't sleep. Those days, I didn't sleep at all. I just couldn't.
And your niece also left Ukraine.
Yeah.
What can you say about that without endangering her safety?
She's fine. She's she wasn't fine. They were in Lviv, actually. She was there with her two older brothers and her mum, while my brother's in Kiev. And Lviv was fairly okay, but they still spent quite a few nights, as long as 5-6 hours in the bomb shelter, where it's cold and just a chair. And it's not something that a 13-year-old necessarily needs to be going through, especially after the 2 years of the pandemic and limited schooling and everything, and she's not the only one. So then eventually I convinced my brother. I just said, listen, why the boys can't leave because they're 20 and 22. But I said, why don't you try and get Asya over the border, and then I'll come and collect her. And I opened the family scheme visa for her and went to get her.
What has that process been like? And in general, how is the UK government scheme for Ukrainian refugees working?
It's not great. I believe that it should have been either scrapped completely and people should have just been coming in, because it's just women and children. Men are not allowed to leave Ukraine. So there's no danger of criminals. You know what I mean? It's literally the most vulnerable people that are trying to come and see their families and whatever. The only reason, mine took about a week. I think the only reason why my visa took that fast to do was because I literally just emailed and phoned my MP incessantly, and then also messaged her on Twitter a few times insistently. Fair enough, you know, they said we are overwhelmed with emails, but I said, okay, but you really need to do this now. And she did. She replied, and then within an hour I got my visa.
Wow.
They have a lot of power. MPs have a lot of power. Like,
so
I know
is this what people should do if they...
Well, I believe so. I mean, you know, there might be an argument, oh, it's because I'm a public figure and I write about this, that this happened. But I had a really good experience with my MP at the time, which was about 5 years ago. I applied for my mum's visiting visa, and she's been coming to see me for 10 years, and they refused. They said, oh, she's coming to look after your child, so she's going to be your nanny. I was a single mom. She was coming to help me, but it was just so inhumane. And they didn't give us the visa, and that was the last time that we could appeal. Then they scrapped that. The Conservative government scrapped any appeal rights. And my mom said, yeah, let's appeal. And we appealed, and we won the case. And then 6 months later, after we won the case, we still didn't have the visa, and no response from the Home Office, no letters, anything. And then I emailed David Lammy, and literally the next day, he sorted it out. And I wasn't a public figure at the time. I was, you know, I had my book out, but it wasn't anything like what it is today. But I just was so impressed, and it felt so good and so powerful to be heard that way, and for someone to just go and do so. I love David Lammy, he's amazing. I really hope that he becomes the Prime Minister one day. Anyway, so I thought I'll try the situation again, you know. So, well, Lynn Brown did help me. That's why I did urge everyone to write, and I did warn that they might be overwhelmed, it's true, but just keep trying. Literally, like, go to the office if you're not being responded to. But my friends are having a different experience especially with the
Homes for Refugees.
The other scheme. Technically, the system is flawed. The documents keep getting lost. People keep getting emails saying, we can't process your visa because their passports don't have biometrics, which is not true. It's a huge mess. The thing is that there is a system in place that the Home Office has created for leave to remain, an automated system, which, from what I've been told, could have been easily adapted for this as well, and it could have been a much easier, neater process. But I don't know why it didn't get used. So yeah, that's confusing. But there's so many vulnerable people. You know, there's my friend Rachel, who's actually getting her Russian teacher in, who lived in Kharkiv. So she left when she has a 4-year-old daughter, and they were literally in Kharkiv, you know, where it's bombings every day. What do you say? Because when you phone the phone line, they just say, we don't have any dates for you, just wait for the letter. How? What plans shall we make? What shall we do, you know? I think I'm going to have to go through this process again, and I will report how that goes. Maybe there are improvements. I really hope so.
And how is your niece adjusting?
It's a new situation. But I think she's happy. She's in a stable home, and you know, we're taking good care of her. I've applied for another hurdle that we have to go through. Obviously, is I've applied for school. Mm-hmm. For a local school. Well, actually, you apply for 6 through your local council. I'm keeping everything crossed that our local school will take her in, the one that my son will go to in a year's time.
So many people in the UK want to do their best to help Ukrainians. What is the most useful thing they can do?
The British public have been just incredible already. I don't know what I expected. I mean, I don't think there were any expectations, because nobody expected the situation to arise, but they have really come through in so many ways, and offering shelter and help, volunteering, donations, you know, they have been amazing. I think going forward, apart from everything that everybody's already doing, one thing that I'm kind of also realizing and kind of consolidating within myself, that it's extremely important to be politically active for everyone, and not just about Ukraine, just about everything. I know it might sound kind of like a bit lofty, but we have the power, and we need to keep people in check. The governments, all of our governments in the UK, internationally, they have to be kept in check, because everything that's happening now in Ukraine and everything that's Putin has achieved, it's been...
Do you think that other countries sort of allowed that to happen, that people didn't...
I think that he's had quite a lot of influence, and the whole populism thing, Brexit, everything is interconnected. And me as well, I'm not blaming anyone. I don't think that I have ever been, I have been a little bit of an observer as well. Of course, I always voted, but that kind of like came just to that. Oh, I vote, it's okay, my life is all right. But actually, I'm not saying that everybody has to become this freedom fighter all of a sudden, no. We still have to take care of our children and do our stuff, but just to take that extra step, and whether it's now, whether we're doing protests or emailing our MPs or doing something little, within your community, whether it's to do with Ukraine or not, just like building those communities from within and keeping our local, governments in check as well. Like, that's something that we really just have to keep in our minds and just change our mindset completely, because I feel like our children's future is at stake. We are wasting all of this precious energy on this horrific, useless, ridiculous war, while our, the planet is in such a terrible state. Like, it's just, I just can't comprehend like how we got to this state. And I think that, people just have to kind of rise up a bit.
What has that process been like for you personally? Because before this started, you were best known as a cookery writer, and now you have become something of a political activist.
After the initial shock, when the wider war happened on the 24th of February, I think something that jolted me into action was literally just talking to my brother on the phone.
Your brother is in the territorial defence?
My brother's in the territorial defence, and he literally said, okay, I can't go. Initially he said, I'll go to Lviv with the boys. And then he said, no, I can't do that. I need to stay here and I need to defend. And then he video called, and he was given this gun, and he was wearing his jeans and his trainers and his, winter coat and no protective gear whatsoever. Like nothing, no helmet, no vest, nothing at all. And when I saw that, I just went into, I don't know, my brain just kind of imploded or exploded, and I decided that I need to do something. And that's when I started kind of raising funds, and now we're actually working with a really great foundation one of the founders is Giles Dooley, who's an amazing war photographer. So they've been helping us in an administrative way. But I just started this process, and now I can't imagine stopping ever. And obviously it's going to, hopefully when the war finishes, I can direct my energy towards building, rebuilding, and building up kind of communities within Ukraine, especially where I know people and that the people that can help me, and just to go from within and help. Because, you can put a plaster on it, but actually what needs to happen in Ukraine now is to kind of just bring those communities together and just to help them develop and help them rebuild and help them recover as well. So, maybe it's a crazy dream, but a dream is to open a small cookery school in my hometown, if we are ever able to return, and to provide kind of like free masterclasses or even kind of a course for children that would have just finished school. So instead of going to university, you could do this and learn a skill, and also do something that's extremely therapeutic. So I think it could help on many levels. Anyway, it's a dream for now, but hopefully, I'm not going to lose hope.
And for British families who are taking in Ukrainian refugees,
mm-hmm.
What are some of the foods that they should lay in, and what should they be prepared for?
So on my Instagram, I have a very long, kind of extensive list. If you look on my Instagram, there's a picture of rye bread, and underneath it, you'll find kind of like 30 ingredients. But quickly now, I think number one, dill. and go to a corner shop and get like a big bunch. Like, don't get the plastic, like little flimsy ones. Like, it's not gonna do it. You need to have a big bunch of dill at home. It's like a flower bouquet almost. And then also a really good quality creme fraiche or sour cream. That smetana is something that we eat a lot. We put it into our tomato sauce to enrich it, and we just add it to borscht, and it's just an ingredient that we really, really love. And then, maybe just some simple things like some crusty bread, some nice cheese and ham, bacon, because we are really big on our lardo in Ukraine, which we call salo. So I think streaky bacon is something that will go down really well. Also introducing some nice British things would be nice, especially puddings. I think British puddings are the best in the world. So like a lovely Victoria sponge or something, sticky toffee pudding. I think it would go down really well, especially with the children. Or custard, banana and custard, something even simple like that would be amazing. And tea, something, I don't know if maybe things are changing and people ask, my mom is definitely starting to drink tea with milk, but mostly people in Ukraine drink black tea with a slice of lemon and some sugar or honey. So that's just the vibe.
So that's how to make people feel welcome.
Yeah.
Make them a cup of black tea, slice of lemon, bit of honey.
Bouquet of dill.
Bouquet of dill. Sorted.
Yeah.
Olia Hercules, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
If you've enjoyed this interview, please subscribe to the New Statesman's YouTube channel.